You may be seated. To our guest of honor and speaker for this evening, Professor Marien Graham, the acting head of Department of Early Childhood Education, Professor Mambani, faculty management committee members present here, Professor Human Fuho, the Deputy Dean for Teaching and Learning. I've also seen Professor Obonaya, head of Department of Education, Science, Maths and Technology Education. The family of Professor Marien Graham, I saw the husband, I met the husband, and distinguished guests, staff and students, good evening. Good evening. It is my honor to welcome you to this inaugural address this evening to be presented by Professor Marien Graham. The title of his inaugural lecture is Numbers with Impact, Transforming Education Through Big Data Analysis. We are privileged to have Professor Loretta Ferris, the Vice Principal, Academic at the University of Pretoria, to officiate this inaugural address this evening. Allow me to introduce to you Professor Loretta Ferris. Professor Ferris is the Vice Principal Academic at the University of Pretoria. Prior to working as a law professor at the University of Pretoria Law Faculty, she was a Deputy Vice Chancellor, Transformation, Student Affairs and Social Responsiveness at the University of Cape Town. She held numerous leadership roles at UCT, including the Director of the Institute of Marine and Environmental Law, as well as a Director of Research, both roles at the Faculty of Law. Professor Ferris is an established scholar with international standing and commendable scholarly work with 8 years of experience at a senior management level. From 2004 to 2005, Professor Ferris was Associate Professor of Law and Program Manager at the International Trade and Investment Law in Africa program at the University of Pretoria. Prior to that, she was involved in several roles at the Washington College of Law, American University, Washington, D.C. in the U.S. She holds a doctoral degree in environmental law, an interdisciplinary field from the University of Stellenbosch. Professor Ferris is a member of the IUCN Academy for Environmental Law, where she has served as a committee member in the Teaching and Training Committee and was requested to serve in a task team that was exploring innovative teaching methodologies for environmental law. She has served as an expert in the United Nations Environmental Programme, Montevideo process, focusing on the development of environmental law at a global level. She was one of the two lead academics for the development of a global curriculum on compliance with and enforcement of multilateral environmental agreements commissioned by the World Conservation Union and UNEP. Professor Ferris serves on the board of BioWatch and chairs the board of Natural Justice, both civil society organizations with a strong focus on environmental justice. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming Professor Ferris onto the platform.
Thank you, Prof. Sule, and good evening, everyone. You're learning slow, eh? On behalf of the Senate of this university, it is my privilege to welcome you to this inaugural lecture of Professor Marien Graham, Professor in the Department of Early Childhood Education in our Faculty of Education here at UP. I would like to extend a special word of welcome, first of all, to Professor Graham, her husband, Walter Graham, as well as the Dean of the Faculty of Education, Professor Chika Sahule, and his Deputy Dean, Professor Salome Manfuchel. Also, welcome to the Acting Head of Department, Professor Ruth Mampane, and all of the colleagues in the Faculty of Education. I've also noticed some colleagues from other faculties and departments, so welcome to you as well. And then last but not least, to all her students. We're really thrilled that you are here to share this special evening with Professor Graham. She started her career in the Department of Statistics at the University of Pretoria in 2005. And she dedicated nearly a decade of her professional life to stats and earned her doctorate in mathematical statistics from the University of Pretoria in 2013. However, in 2016, driven by a desire to effect change in South Africa's educational landscape, she then transitioned to the Department of Early Childhood Education, where she is currently a full professor. Her research in the field of education shed light on critical issues within South Africa's educational landscape. She uses novel and sophisticated statistical techniques to generate a more comprehensive understanding of how learning and assessment opportunities for students at all levels of the formal education system, whether it's early learning, primary, secondary, or tertiary education, and their overall mental health and well-being can be improved. As an academic, she has made substantial contributions to various fields, including education, healthcare, and social issues. She's published over 120 articles in peer-reviewed journals and has authored a book and 5 chapters. She also serves on the editorial advisory board of Scientific Studies and Research, Serious Mathematics, and Informatics, and she regularly presents her findings at conferences both locally and abroad. She supervised 1 postdoc fellow, 15 doctoral candidates, and 22 master students to completion. She holds a C3 NRF rating and also serves on rating committees for the NRF. In 2023, she was awarded the Research Medal by the Education Association of South Africa. But despite these numerous accolades, she is also just a person. And so in her private life, she enjoys Pilates and hiking. And during her last international hike, she and her husband Graham hiked to a Roman aqueduct, and she'll tell us more about this during her lecture. Now, the title of the lecture this evening is Numbers with Impact, Transforming Education Through Big Data Analytics. Historically, data was not always accessible or widely shared. However, as we all now know, in this era of digital transformation, which is marked by big data, cloud storage, data science, and artificial intelligence, the educational landscape has, as a result, undergone a profound metamorphosis. The manner in which data is acquired, disseminated, and utilized has changed fundamentally. And these innovations have, in fact, revolutionized traditional teaching and learning methods. Education is now intertwined with the power of big data analytics. And these tools provide us with an empirical-based, objective foundation for well-informed and unbiased decisions that are grounded in evidence. And this, in turn, significantly improves for us the educational landscape. In her own scholarship, Professor Graham focuses on exploring and demonstrating the application of big data analytics in education, enhancing teaching methodologies, improving learner outcomes, and supporting mental health and well-being. And so during her address this evening, Prof. Graham will, from her extensive research and practical implementations, showcase how through data-driven insights one can transform the educational world. The address will delve into the impact of data-driven insights on teaching and learning, as well as learner well-being and mental health, underscoring the need for a holistic approach to educational improvement. It'll highlight the importance of transdisciplinary work, and those of you who know me know that I get very excited when I hear the word transdisciplinary, in creating a more integrated and effective educational framework. The future of education lies in leveraging reliable data so that we can make sure that we can enhance academic outcomes and ultimately address all of these broad societal challenges that we face in this country and that we as a university have to contribute to make a change to. The resulting systemic changes that we can see from leveraging reliable data can potentially create more equitable educational opportunities for all learners. In conclusion, there's an African proverb that says, knowledge is a garden. If it isn't cultivated, you can't harvest it. Professor Graham's work reveals the disciplined and ceaseless cultivation that has gone into her research and the rich harvest in her proverbial garden. We look forward to listening to you. Thank you, Prof. Graham.
Prof. Ferris, Prof. Sewell, Prof. Mampana, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And thank you for making the time to celebrate this academic ritual tonight. I would like to thank the university for putting their trust in me with this promotion and being able to address you on my work tonight. On reflection on what I should include tonight, I must say what stood out for me was the incredible individuals that I've met along the way. None of my so-called milestones or work that I've done would have been possible alone. So as Vygotsky so eloquently phrased it, through others, we become ourselves. So firstly, I would like to thank my husband, Walter, because the time spent building my career was not without his sacrifice. So Prof. Ferris mentioned we enjoy hiking. So the pictures you see, that is our most recent international hike. It was in Spain where we hiked to the Roman aqueducts. So to my family. When I think back to my childhood, education was always a very central focus in our home, in our family, with my grandmother, the late Marien Lochner, being the first female deputy principal in a mixed gender high school in Pretoria, and with my mother holding multiple degrees, ranging from Latin to psychology, and my father having a degree in electrical engineering. So my grandparents and my parents believed that with education came power and freedom of choice. So I'm extremely grateful for the home environment they created, where debate was encouraged and where support was unfiltered. I would also like to thank my brother. There's a picture of us when we were young. He is my older brother, Dion, who led by example without probably even realizing it. So unfortunately, Dion couldn't be here tonight because he resides in New Zealand. Then my work family. So there are so many individuals that I would like to thank who contributed to my career, and there are too many to list. But we all have heard the saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So, by that logic, I am the average of these 5 individuals. So I would like to thank each of them individually. So I started my career at Department of Statistics, where Dr. Francine Dreineke was like a mother to me. I would like to thank her for looking after me when I was still very apprehensive about what the future might hold for me. I would also like to thank Prof. Subha Chakraborty, who was my PhD supervisor in mathematical statistics. So after a decade at Department of Statistics, I moved to Faculty of Education. And here in my new home, I'd like to thank Prof. Irma Elof and Prof. Liesel Everson for their mentorship and guidance. over the last 8 years. And then lastly, Prof. Fahima Muhammad Ashmal, with who I am collaborating at the Department of Speech, Language, Pathology and Audiology. I am involved with so many projects there, as they call me their local biostatistician, that they have joked about giving me an office in their department. So, turning to my research. So we live in a transformative era where we now have big data, cloud storage, data science, and artificial intelligence. And the educational landscape has undergone a profound metamorphosis with fundamental changes in how data is acquired, disseminated, and utilized. And recent innovations have revolutionized traditional teaching and learning, while intertwining education with big data analytics. So historically, educational research was based on qualitative methods, where we had interviews, observations, case studies, and grounded theory. And big quantitative data was not accessible, and it was not widely shared. But now, with the availability of access to big data, quantitative research enjoys heightened esteem amongst policymakers, media, the general public, due to statistics being objective and factual. So whereas qualitative research is frequently argued to be subjective and impressionistic. So without getting my education staff upset, I do want to say I'm not here to criticize qualitative approaches. Different methods are appropriate for different aspects of social research. I myself have worked in mixed methods approaches, and also I have an article purely qualitative. I also acknowledge that quantitative methods cannot match qualitative approaches in terms of their suitability for understanding nuances of the numerous social processes happening in certain phenomena. However, quantitative methods are well placed to chart the wider structures within which individuals live their everyday experiences. And of course, quantitative data have many other advantages, which we will see on the next slide. So big data analytics provides data-driven insights, leading to improved, unbiased, empirically based decision-making, grounded in tangible evidence. There's cost optimization because data is becoming more freely available, and we can run predictive analysis that is objective and factual. So in my research, I shed light on critical issues within the South African landscape, utilizing novel and sophisticated statistical techniques to generate a thorough understanding of how learning and assessment, and also the well-being and mental health of students across South Africa can be improved. And this is students across all tiers of the educational landscape. So some examples of big data in education, we all know the ILSAs. So ILSA, International Large Scale Assessment. We all know TIMS, we all know PIRLS. TIMS, every 4 years, maths and science achievement being monitored globally, and PIRLS, reading literacy, every 5 years being monitored globally, and South Africa participating in these ILSAs. So tonight, I'll be guiding you on a hiking journey through the landscape of statistics in education. We're going to start with an easy walk. As you can see on the picture, this is a walk my husband and I did that even my 2 dogs can manage with ease, as the ground is flat and there are no hills. And all the hiking photos you will see throughout tonight was taken by us, and hikes that my husband and I and our dogs, the dogs, not all of them, underwent. So we start easy. So we start with my 2023 sole authored publication on overcrowded classrooms and their association with mathematics achievement. So I took secondary data from TIMS grade 9 2019 South African data. Now note the large sample sizes. There's over 500 schools and there's over 20,000 learners. So big data. So I just ran correlations. Like I said, we're starting easy. Just correlations using the IDB analyzer. And you will see throughout tonight at the bottom of the screens, the software that I used is listed because you will have to master many different types of software to be able to run all the various models that I'm going to show tonight. So just the result, of course, we all thought it would be negative, the correlation, because the larger the class, the worse the mathematics achievement. That corresponds to theory and literature. But the question is, why did I have to use specialized software to run correlations? Why not use Excel? Why specialized software? So if you work with TIMS and PILS data, so TIMS data, let's take the math achievement. The math achievement is not one variable. It's 5 plausible values. And you can't just average over these 5 plausible values and make your own math achievement variable. There are different weights attached to these plausible values that no one understands except for the IEA. So the IEA, or maybe Dr. Combrink in the audience, so the IEA created a software program which is free, which you have to use to analyze TIMS and PILS data. Because of all this weighting being done in the background. There's also one other software program, we'll look at that next, to work with these weights. Okay, so now our next hike takes us into a bit more of a challenging route because this one has a little bit of an incline. So the next article was in 2022, a sole authored article about safety factors associated with math achievement in primary schools. So now I use grade 5 data as opposed to the previous article was grade 9 data. So although the sample sizes are a bit smaller, you can still see the large sample sizes, the big data we have available. So there I built a multi-level model. I had 7 independent variables and they're all related to safety in schools. And I had 1 dependent variable, maths achievement. So now I had to use HLM software. So why do we have to use hierarchical linear modeling software? Well, except for the plausible values and the weights that I explained, you can't just use normal linear modeling because TIMS and PILS data have nested structures. So the nested structures are you have the learner is in a school, and the learner is in a class, and the class is in a school. So when you look at the output, you do get familiar output of a regression model with a coefficient, a standard error, and a p-value, but you get it on the different levels. So you get the student level, which is level 1, and then these are just the significant predictors at student level. And then, of course, the models also give you significant predictors at school level, which you can then use to make informed recommendations for educational practices. So the next article that I published with my master's student, it was published 2 weeks ago, now in 2024. I'm not going into the detail. I just wanted to read you the title because I wanted to show you the previous 2 examples was TIMS data, but of course, the other well-known ILSA is the PILS data, also big data that we have available to us. So the title was Parental Involvement Predicts Grade 4 Learners Reading Literacy. an analysis of polls data for students in Mpumalanga, South Africa. Now, we only worked with Mpumalanga. The student was from Mpumalanga, but you can still see it's over 1,000 learners, even though we only used one province. Okay, so now we have looked at correlations, we have looked at multi-level models. Now the hike gets more difficult, because not only do we have elevation, but now we have a combination of elevation and loose rocks. So the next article I want to look at is by myself and Prof. Inaugural, published in 2022, and we compared mental health, well-being and flourishing of undergraduate students pre and during COVID. Now, the statistics that falls onto this hike with this steep slope and the loose rocks, we had to use non-parametric multivariate critical Wallace. So we had to use non-parametric because the data was not normally distributed. We had to use multivariate because many variables were involved. And we also had to use ad hoc tests. And we used validated instruments. But now, why is this hike? Why did I say it's steeper than the previous one? It's non-parametric. It's multivariate, crystal Wallace plus ad hoc tests. What made it even the hike more difficult is although we used validated instruments, 3 of them, they have not been validated within our population, in our context. So we couldn't just use them. We first had to check whether the underlying factor structure fit within our population. So we first had to conduct a confirmatory factor analysis using AMOS software. Then, if that wasn't enough, so now as we approach sections in our hiking route where the terrain becomes more challenging, we see now the ascent is so steep that steps are required. And as we prepare for the descent, there are actually warning signs, reminding us to tread carefully and very slowly. So now I'm moving up to an article with Prof. Salome Manvogel, a postgraduate student within our faculty, and also with a collaborator from Germany. So in that article, we looked at the role of mentoring in developing leaders' emotional intelligence. So that sounds simple enough, but we added looking at moderating variables and mediating variables, which confound the statistics. So as you can see, as soon as you bring in moderation, moderated variables, mediated variables, so it's a moderated, mediated path analysis, you have many paths to consider and it does get complex. And even we couldn't just use SPSS for this. We had to use a special add-on package in SPSS, and it's by Hayes. Hayes was the author, and it's called the process model to analyze our moderated, mediated analyses. So if that wasn't enough, now we get to the most difficult hike tonight. So this was a hike we did 2 weekends ago, and it was in Magaliesberg, and just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, we ran into the sign saying, so you thought it was going to be easy, and it was already quite hard before seeing that sign. So now I turn to a paper with Prof. Eberson. So Prof. Liesel Eberson and myself and a PhD student, we looked at the significance of feeling safe for resilience of adolescents in sub-Saharan Africa. So we used data from 9 African countries. And as you can see, the data again was very large. The data set over 3,000 respondents. And the statistics we wanted to run were so complex with so many countries, with so many variables, we had to construct a structural equation model. So on the next slide, you will see why I classify this as the most challenging hike. Just take a moment. So this is, in my opinion, the most complex, well, what I think is the most complex statistical analyses that I've run at the Faculty of Education. And this was run using Starter software. There's other software AMS that can also do this. So then, after running all of this and being involved with Faculty of Education for 8 years, what do I think is the future of education? So I think the future of education lies in leveraging big data to enhance academic outcomes and to address broader societal challenges. You did see some of my articles working on safety, on resilience. We are looking at broader societal challenges. This can drive systemic change to create more equitable educational opportunities for students. So my work underscores the importance of continued research in this area, and it also highlights the importance of transdisciplinary work in creating a more integrated and effective educational framework. So, of course, all the references can be made available to anyone upon request. Of course, the presentation as well, you can just contact me. And so, as we reach the end, because I didn't want to show 1,000 statistical models and bore my audience to death, I would like to thank the University of Pretoria for the opportunity to come here and to share my story with you. It is indeed a privilege to work at an institution that allows me the opportunity to serve in a profession which I think can make a difference to the quality of life in individuals. And that is one of the reasons why I moved from Department of Statistics to the Faculty of Education. At the Department of Statistics, I was running very abstract statistical models and creating new statistical theories. And although it interested me, I didn't feel I was making an impact in the quality of someone's life. So I'm very honored to have joined the Faculty of Education, and I feel privileged to do what I do every day. And then finally, I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, after hours, to come and listen to my story.
Distinguished guests and colleagues, allow me to take this opportunity to thank all of you for attending this inaugural address of Professor Graham, entitled Numbers with Impact, Transforming Education Through Big Data Analytics. I want you to join me in congratulating Professor Graham on that interesting and insightful lecture. Again, I want to thank all of you present here, in particular the leadership of the faculty, colleagues of Professor Graham in the faculty, and the mentors who are present here for supporting her in her journey to where she has been at the moment. And I would like to also acknowledge the visitors, colleagues from other faculties and entities of the university for joining us this evening to celebrate this academic journey of Professor Graham. Again, I want to acknowledge Professor Graham's husband present here this evening. Congratulations as well on Professor Graham's inaugural lecture. And many thanks and gratitude to all of you present this evening. I want also to thank those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to ensure that this inaugural lecture is not only realized but successful. In particular, the staff from the Dean's Office, Dr. Sharon Mashau, as well as Ms. Mbumi Mafafu. Our guests from Gordon Harris, thanks for being here and the work which you have done in making sure that good photographs are taken for this occasion. The Atlas Caterers, University IT representative here, thank you for your service. University Security Services, the cleaners, and all of these entities, I want to offer a collective thank you to all of you. Deputy Vice Chancellor, Professor Ferris, thank you as well for your role this evening. As we prepare to leave here, I want to invite you once more to congratulate Professor Graham on her inaugural lecture. Before you leave, I want to invite you to join us for refreshments in the foyer in the front of this building. From me, Professor Chika Sihole, I want to wish you well, safe travel to your respective homes, and arrive alive. Good night.